here we are with a new podcast, and this will be an insight on how to measure SOC effectiveness, Security Operations Center effectiveness, how to build metrics. And this podcast is more from the CISO perspective or the one who leading a SOC and want to know how to measure the effectiveness SOC. So I believe that can be the new insight we get in this particular podcast. Hi, team. Welcome to the session on Coffee with Prab. And today we have a special guest, Mr. Jyoti. We already did one podcast where we discussed about how to make a career in SOC, and it was a great hit. So I ping him again. Let me check whether his availability we get. And yeah, here we are with a new podcast, and this will be an insight on how to measure SOC effectiveness, Security Operations Center effectiveness, how to build metrics. And this podcast is more from the CISO perspective or the one who leading a SOC and want to know how to measure the effectiveness SOC. So I believe that can be the new insight we get in this particular podcast. Thanks, Ada, for taking out the time.
Thanks a lot, Prav. Glad to be back. Thanks a lot for doing the last one. It was well accepted. I got a lot of positive feedback regarding the session. A lot of people have reached out to me with follow up questions, which is an indicator of how effective that podcast was. So if I was somebody who wanted to measure the
Hmm.
effectiveness of our last podcast, I would have just measured how many positive feedbacks that I've got out of it, and it was good. So that's how important metrics are. So I'll
And
do
you can see
this.
the quality. You can see the quality in Navajit because the last actually podcast was about how to measure SOC effectiveness, and it was switched to the how to make a career. So this is the quality of experienced person, how to drive the sessions. Thanks, the. But it was really, it was on the spot, and taking out the content is not an easy task.
Yeah, it was kind of fun, and I think it was important because I later realized that what what we spoke about in my head is absolutely fundamental and rudimentary. But when the video was out and when I
Hmm.
heard the feedback of a lot of people, I was surprised to see that feedback is not available. So
True.
and I'm happy that we kind of went through that road. We talked about some of those absolute basic things that needed to be understood, not just for the juniors who want to get into this field, but also for a lot of people who is in the journey, who wants to do a little bit of pivot and all. So I'm happy that we did that. Couple of things before we start doing the matrix discussion. So although we are going to talk about SOC matrix, but I want to start with something a little more fundamental, because I've always believed in that aspect that the fundamentals are going to take you the long way. So you can be street smarts and all of that is good, but you need to have that fundamental base. So uh, where I would want to start is, why do you need a matrix? So I mean, there's this lot of buzz around SOC. Of course, I agree. There's a lot of buzz around matrix. Like every vendor that you would meet, every product owner that you would meet, they will talk about, we have these matrix. This is artificial intelligence driven. This is based on machine learning. This is that, and all of that is good. But having said that, rarely you would come across somebody who would have that clarity that why that basic or why a specific metric is needed.
Hmm.
So essentially, what has to happen is, right now the way it happens is, we identify a matrix, or rather, we are presented with a matrix, and then we decide what to do with that.
Dada, you're
Which
clear. Sorry to interrupt here. As you said, you're very clear with the basics here. Before we basically talk about how we define the metrics and all that, can you give insight about what is metrics to the people who are basically
Hmm.
new to this podcast and they're new to this particular vertical, because we can see multiple type of audience here watching this podcast here.
Correct. I'll try in my way. So it has got nothing to do with SOC. It has got nothing to do with
Hmm.
cybersecurity. Metrics are basically quantitative parameters
Hmm.
that you identify at the start of a particular project, start of a particular journey,
Hmm.
and then using that metric, you decide certain attributes of your enterprise. Let's say for a food delivery app, a key metric is how quickly they have delivered, how many orders they have delivered. So what are these two metrics going to tell them is if there is an increase in the time that is taken to deliver their order, which means they need to add more riders to their fleet. So that's a metric, and that's how you take a decision based on the metric.
Okay.
So now we're going to talk about how there are metrics which are available for SOC, which every cyber defense head or a CISO function needs to measure of a SOC to figure out whether the SOC is effective, whether the SOC is efficient, and there are a few more things that we're going to primarily talk about. But there is one very fundamentally important thing that needs to be understood here, which is none of the metric should be looked into without context, without relevance, and without historical data.
Okay.
Like before we started, I was giving you that example. A very popular SOC matrix is false positive rate. So if you come and tell me that an enterprise A has a false positive rate of, let's say, 20%, and B has a false positive rate of 30%, and if you tell me which is a better organization, I will not be able to give you the right answer. Because if you are falling into that trap by saying, ये 20% वाला बेहतर है, it is a wrong way of interpreting information. It is a wrong way of interpreting statistics. What you need to look at is what is the overall maturity of that enterprise, how many years they have been doing SOC in a certain way that they're doing right now, by which I mean at what level of maturity they are in an overall space. So if a very well fine-tuned 5-year-old running SOC is still having 20% false positive rate, that's really bad. But if your team has started last month and you are already at 20% or at a 25% false positive rate, then you have done a phenomenal job. So it's very important to understand matrix with context.
Okay.
If you do not have context, if you are looking at matrix in silo, you are going to make bad, uninformed decisions. So do not fall for that. So which is why we'll start with why do we need matrix? So in one line, the answer is we want to take. So if you ask me what does a CISO do? A CISO takes decisions. Any leadership role, forget about a CISO, if you're talking about a CTO, if you're talking about a CEO, COO, they are paid that amount of money, they have that amount of responsibility on their shoulders because they are expected to make decisions. They are expected to make correct decisions more number of times.
True.
Now, in order to make correct decisions 9 out of 10 times or 8 out of 10 times, you need data.
Yeah.
Correct? So you can only make a correct decision if you have enough correct information with you. So you need to be well informed to take the decision. That is precisely why you need a matrix.
And how to create that?
As a decision maker, you need enough information to make that decision. Simple example. I will take that Zomato or that food delivery app example, right? So if I have to decide for next quarter, do I need to increase the number of drivers or do I need to decrease the number of drivers? I would look at the data of what is the average delay in a specific order in a specific region and whether that delay is comparable to all other regions or which region has the most delay. And I would know that specific region needs more drivers because wahan pe orders are getting delivered lately.
Yeah.
There's a delay. Or what I can also do is, now why is this data not individually sufficient? Because that particular city or that particular place might have a lot of traffic congestion. So although I have a lot of drivers, the traffic is so high, these people are not able to deliver. So there, just by increasing the number of drivers will not help. True. I have to think laterally, figure out some different models. So this is what I'm trying to get at. So in order to make informed decision, you need data, and matrix are the most efficient way of data representation. So it will tell you when and what resources to add. Now, resources are not just people. Resources can be technology. Resources can be, you know, adding more processes. If you do not have a process around something, you would find your use cases not being functioning efficiently, because the guy who is developing the use case is not testing it out in UAT and directly putting into production.
True.
So
I
this is
agree.
not a people problem. This is not a technology problem. This is a process problem. So if you have
Okay.
a matrix of that false positive thing, one of the outcome that you should have written somewhere is why I'm using the matrix is that I'm just not going to evaluate the people and the technology, but I'm also going to evaluate the underlying process behind it. Is that process optimized to the point that nothing else could have been done a little better? So, you know, when and what resources needed to be added. The second is to identify gaps, deficiencies in your process, and then so that you can finally streamline it. Correct? Simple, that food delivery app example. If I know that a particular pin code has a lot of delay, I know that there are certain gaps that I have. Either I would add more drivers, or I would have an efficient algorithm built just for that specific area. And then similarly, if I need to add more technology, let's say I have a metric that captures how many times has my database reached the maximum compute, and it is supposed to probably reach only once or twice in a day. But if for a period of time I see that it is breaching the threshold, let's say 10 times or 15 times in an hour, I know it's time that I need to add more compute, I need to add more resource to that database.
Mm.
So this is precisely why we need metrics. We, as leadership team, as professionals, we need to make decisions. In order to make decisions, we need data, and what is the way the data should be represented to us so that you can make that informed decision are the matrix. So that's the basic premise. So the second thing that I want to talk about before we deep dive into the matrix of SOC, so to speak. So even within a space wherein there are two enterprises, both are measuring metrics,
Mm.
but they would be at a very different stages of maturity. Just by, and you can analyze that just by looking at the way the matrix is measured and the way the matrix is being used. So what I do is I have this 5 tier model. Of course, stage one is there is no measurement, there is no definition of matrix. Bhagwan bharose. Okay? So that's stage one, stage zero, so to speak. Then you have a stage wherein you have defined some metric, and you are collecting it either manually, you are preparing it in some Excel or somewhere, but you are not publishing the matrix. So there is this bunch of 2 3 people who are collecting it, putting it in Excel, putting it on PPT, and saving it in a folder. That's their work. So that's just stage two.
Mm.
And although it might feel little strange, but majority of the organizations are either in this stage or the next stage that I'm going to talk about, which is where that the matrix are published. Now it's a little step up, that they are collecting the matrix, they're publishing the matrix, but there is no outcome or action defined. Believe you me, 50 to 60% of enterprises, large scale enterprises are in this stage wherein they have identified 10,000 metrics, they are publishing 15,000 metrics to their CISO. There is no outcome which is defined, there is no action which is defined. It's being done because of ISO 27000 compliance, because of regulatory compliance, because internal audit has said, because internal audit will tell you should have matrix. That's their way of telling that the processes are not correct. So the team will come, they will create 4 metrics, they will publish 4 metrics to the CISO team. Point closed. पर उससे फायदा क्या हुआ?
Just
Nothing.
for the sake of documentation, yeah.
हाँ, उसमें नुकसान हुआ. क्या नुकसान हुआ?
Right.
Earlier there were 2 people who were spending 2 hours on incident investigation. Now they are spending 2 hours on preparing
Documentation.
and collecting matrix and publishing it to the CISO. So those two
Documentation.
hours which could have been utilized in actually doing incident investigation is now being wasted doing this because there was an internal audit observation.
Mm.
So we'll move a little forward, which is, let's say, stage 4, which is where you have defined matrix and you have identified some outcome associated with it, but you are not doing it for all the possible areas. So this is where I would say, so the first stage 2 and stage 3 is, let's say, about 60% of the organization. Then there is another 15 to 20% of the organization which are in this stage.
Okay.
So what they do is, say,
Hmm.
even within SOC, we have multiple subdomains, right? We have threat hunting, threat intelligence, we have incident response, we have incident monitoring. There are forensics that a lot of SOC team does. There's a lot of governance that the SOC team does. So mostly you would go and ask the matrix of these team. A large percentage of organizations will tell you that we are measuring time, MTTD, MTTR, very popular. It has been running around since last 10,000 years. Everybody is measuring mean time to detect and mean
Mean
time to
time to
respond.
respond. Yeah.
But is that be all and end all of SOC? No. So, which is where that 20% is in that stage 4, wherein they have very well defined matrix, they have associated outcomes, they take decisions based on their matrix, but they are not doing it for all the applicable domains that their team has.
Hmm.
Which brings us to the final stage. This is the dream state. There's a dream team, and we would want our organizations, we would want all our organizations, the large ones, the important ones, to be in the stage wherein you have well defined matrix which is in line with your organization or your cyber risk goals.
Hmm.
Now, if, let's say, I am part of an organization which do not use any Windows product.
Hmm.
I can be an organization which is entirely Windows independent. I am either on Mac, or I am on Linux, or I am on some flavor of Linux. I do
Hmm.
not have Windows. For me, it does not make any sense to figure out how many Windows patches have I implemented in last 30 months or last 30 days, and at what percentage of my assets are covered or not. It does not make sense because I don't have that inventory. So that
Agree.
matrix is obsolete.
Agree.
So well defined, number one. Number two, it should be in line with your organization and your cyber risk goals, ability, infrastructure.
Hmm.
And third thing is, it should be across all relevant domains. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि तुम SOC में 20 matrix you have defined and you have no matrix for your data privacy, if you have no matrix for your governance, because उसमें
No
focus नहीं
point.
है.
No point.
That is again wrong.
Hmm.
So well defined, relevant domains में होने चाहिए for across all domains. It should be in line with your cyber risk goals. And the last, and one of the most important one, not just last, I think last but one, but one of the important one is that try making an environment wherein these metrics are automatically collected and created. The data point should be automatically collected and the matrix should be created not via manual intervention, because there are biases that come in, there are errors that come in, there are human manipulations that come in. You would want your matrix to be as pure as possible. Even it comes with some bit of error, some bit of context missing, you want to see that data that way, and then you discuss those matrix and figure out what percentage should be considered and what percentage should not be considered. So a very important element is that the data or the matrix publishing or collection should be with minimum manual intervention. I understand there's a lot of places, lot of domains, lot of enterprises where automation is not readily available, or to collect something in that automated manner there's a challenge. So for those areas, you try to reduce the manual intervention.
So
The
Dada,
last,
normally, if you take example, can you just give an example of one quick overview through, metrics of SOC? According to you, ideally it should be there, or starting from the
we
phase,
will,
we are
so
step
what
one to
I've
step.
done is I've also identified few matrix. I'm going to just quickly talk about them. Maybe we
Hmm.
can pick one or two
Yeah,
which you think is more interesting, and maybe we can deep dive into that
yeah.
matrix, talk about certain aspect. But before we go into that,
Hmm.
the last part of any matrix conversation, which is the most important, is the matrix, like everything else,
Hmm.
needs to be reviewed on a periodic basis. You need to figure out whether it is still relevant or not. I will tell you a very beautiful example.
Hmm.
We are all we are all aware of uh, the move it vulnerability that came
Yeah.
few months back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So most of the organizations who had move it, they started figuring out a metric that how many move it servers have been patched, not patched. Now it is not relevant even, but still there is a team who is tracking it. There is a still team who is tracking it. So which is where you need to review your matrix on a periodic basis, figure out, yeah, if it is still relevant.
Very good point.
If it is not relevant,
Remove
don't
it.
keep it just for the sake of keeping it. Remove it. It's okay. But in their head, they are like, नहीं पहले तो 10 metric थे, अभी 9 हो गए. People will think we are not doing our work diligently. Doesn't matter.
Hmm. Hmm.
Change that mindset. It is okay to measure 5 things, but measure them well. Take actions on those 5 measure rather than measuring 50 and not doing anything about them.
Hmm.
Quantity, not important. Quality, very important. So the last thing is you review it on a periodic basis, at least yearly you review them, figure out whether it is relevant or not, and identify what action are you going to take basis the threshold that you have defined or basis the outcome that you are seeing. Like I said, if you see that let's say within SOC you have created these 5 domains, right?
Hmm.
Response, hunting, let's say intelligence, blah blah blah, and then you see most of your domains are probably in green, they are doing reasonably well, but your threat hunting domain is not having consistently good numbers.
Hmm.
That gives you a very instant idea that वो domain ऐसा तो नहीं हो सकता कि your organization is doing very well in 3 places and it is miserable in 4. So it
Hmm.
means that there is some problem in that area. Either you need to add more resource. Like I said, now you go and correlate with that my earlier conversation. Why do we need a matrix? Now you can instantly correlate and say maybe I need to put one more threat hunter. Maybe
Hmm.
I need to put a little more storage in my hunting platform because these people are not getting enough logs. Maybe they are just doing hunting based on last 30 days log, which we know is not enough. They
Hmm.
probably need 90 days log, but storage ही नहीं है. So इसीलिए they are not able to store logs and do it. So these are the outcomes, these are the insights that you need to get out from your matrix. If you are not doing that, please ask your team to not send you that matrix report, that monthly report, those monthly dashboard. If you are not opening it, if you are not using it, ask your team to not send it. Save their time, let them enjoy whatever they want to do. So now we'll straightforward go into some of the matrix that we do in SOC.
But Dada,
Correct?
I'm sorry. I know it is like on a gunpoint, like an online session I'm doing. It actually, the point you said I want to use for my project. Sorry to say that, but I'm taking free
Mhm,
consulting advice. So
mhm,
um, there's a lot of people, even in the podcast, they talk about create metrics like this, like that, and this. But I want this session to be unique. Okay. One of the most
mhm,
important struggle people has in building metrics is how to start. So if you can share one case study of your real time and all that without
mhm,
breaching a confidential information, perhaps this is the step one, and this is the
mhm,
step four. It will be great insight,
mhm,
can be great useful for me
mhm.
at least, and for the other people who watching this video. Because we have a chat GPT, we have a Google Bard. We simply type create 10 metrics, what, why, and who. But when you're working in the
Right.
production, they ask you first question, build metrics. Now the person is
Mhm.
blank, how to start? So do you have any suggestions? Do you have any pointers
Correct.
from
So
that
I
perspective?
get your question. I get your question, but I'll try to answer it as honestly as possible. See, if you are entrusting the responsibility of creating a matrix
Yeah,
to
that's the one.
somebody who does not have adequate experience in that
Hmm.
particular domain or who has just been there, who has not seen how matrix are built, then I don't think that's the right approach. Because this is like I said, this is a leadership conversation. This is a conversation that needs to be done by people who are going to take decisions.
Hmm.
So if you have not been at that level, if you have not seen enough, it would be actually difficult for you to identify the matrix. See, like
Hmm.
you said, a beautiful way, you go to Bard, you go to ChatGPT, you ask them, tell me 5 metrics. It will immediately give you 10 metrics, you
Hmm.
can go and start using them.
Hmm. Hmm.
This
Hmm.
is where the importance of whether they're aligned to your organization, whether you need to measure it weekly, monthly, yearly. once a day. So these are some of the context, and eventually what you do with that matrix. What you do with that matrix is very, very, very important.
Important.
So I will tell you some of the metrics that you have heard. I'm not saying you have not heard. I will just say them, that these are not the popular ones that are available over the internet. Okay.
Mhm.
So from an incident response and an incident monitoring investigation, the top two metrics are MTTD, MTTR, mean time to detect, respond, close. Uh, Very important.
Okay.
Okay. Now, how, if you are going beyond, and if you are approaching some of the large organizations, some of the much matured organizations, they would also consider what is the average time taken by the analysts within the team to, let's say, detect or respond to a particular incident. And then what is the average volume of tickets which are handled by individual analysts. Now, these two are not very popular metric. Now, if as a CISO, if you want to take a decision, ये दो metric मुझे measure करना चाहिए कि नहीं करना चाहिए? Why do I need these two metrics? We'll start from zero, the way you
Hmm.
asked me, like,
Hmm. Hmm.
कि how
Hmm.
do I think?
Hmm.
So the way you should think is, what should I do with this two data?
Hmm.
That is one way of thinking. But a better way of thinking is that, what is my problem statement? My problem
Exactly.
statement is, I have 10 analysts in my team, and at the end of the year, all the 10 analysts will come and tell me I deserve one rating.
Hmm.
So I have to figure out a way that out of those 10, who are one, who are two, who are three, and who are four.
Hmm.
So this is a problem statement that every performance manager has. What is my second problem statement? My second problem statement is, was there a particular instance in last 6 or 8 months wherein an analyst failed to identify a real incident and closed it as a false positive, which might have led to a breach, or which could have led to a breach, and this was identified in my quality assurance program when I was reviewing the way the
Hmm.
tickets are closed.
Hmm.
That's my second trigger, that I want to understand what is the efficiency of my analyst, and also what is the efficacy of my analyst,
Hmm.
how good they are, and at what frequency they are good.
Hmm.
See, a Virat Kohli is Virat Kohli because he is scoring hundreds, not just one in every year. He's scoring them one probably every match.
Hmm.
So it is
True.
not about scoring 100, it is about consistently scoring 100. So if you have to become the Virat Kohli of your SOC, you have to consistently detect incidents, and you have to consistently detect them in a time window which is, reasonable for that enterprise, or which
Hmm.
is within the SLA parameters of that enterprise. So how do you differentiate between a Virat Kohli and a Prithvi Shaw? Is you look at these numbers.
True.
So now, if you see that there is a massive deviation in the volume of tickets which are handled by individuals. So
Hmm.
if you have 10 analysts, and you see that analyst 1 has done 100, analyst 2 has done 80, analyst 3 has done, let's say, 60, and uske baad analyst 4, 5, and 6, they have done 20 each. So your first instinct is, why these three have done so less, and why this one guy has done so high.
Benchmark. Yeah.
Now, the general feeling or that general mindset of most people is that whoever has done 20 are bad, इनको team से हटा दो.
Hmm.
Which is where you need to understand and you need to add more context. So which is where matrix conversation are not a one time single hour, मैंने matrix देख लिया, report
खत्म.
देख लिया, okay कर दिया, हो गया. It is not that. You
No.
need to have that context conversation associated with it.
Hmm.
Why? So this analyst who has probably done 100 tickets maybe was in a shift one day
मैं
when
water दादा.
some when some use case misfired, and it generated, let's say, 40 alerts in one go.
Hmm.
He was in shift, he went ahead and he closed all those 40 alerts as false positive, which is why his count is 100. Does that make him an efficient L1?
No.
No. So scoring 100 against a small team is not as important, or is not considered in the same space like scoring 100 probably in Australia against a stronger team. So this is the context that you need to understand.
Okay.
Similarly, the guy who has probably done 20 was maybe available, or was the person who was available on a day when actually a breach came and this was the person who identified. So out of this 20, maybe there was this 2 alerts which actually prevented your company getting breached.
Hmm.
So just looking at average volume of tickets handled by an individual is not enough. But you would also, if you see this trend over a period of 6 months, and if you see that there is this bunch of 4 people who are always at the bottom 4, then there is a problem. Either all of these people are coming, these bottom 4 are coming in continuous night shifts wherein the volume of tickets is less, or they are reasonably lazy and they are not closing tickets, they are not doing their job diligently, either of the two. So now your decision making is very clear. You will just open the roster, figure out whether these 4 people have been in night shift. If they are in not night shift, you know they are poor performers, you go ahead and you start a coaching program or a mentoring program for them. So as a leader, if somebody asks me, how do you design your trailing calendar, how do you design your mentoring calendar, this is how do it. So now we will again go back to my earlier conversation. You are a leader, you have to take a decision. What is your decision? I have to decide, out of my 10 analysts, which analyst or which 2 or 3 analysts I will mentor for this quarter. How do I do this? I do this basis informed decision. How do I take that decision? I use a metric. What is the metric that I will use? I will use the average volume of ticket and the average time taken by the analyst to resolve tickets within my team. The top is of course good. The bottom half, until and unless there is a reason and a context behind it, I will identify those bunch of people and I would put them in a mentoring program.
And
This is
that's
how,
basically the important part, I believe, because
yes, so
instead
this
of
is
starting
how
with how, yeah.
you ideate. This is how you ideate. You don't create a matrix and then think about the problem. You think about the problem, you think about what decisions you have to make, and then you design a matrix against it.
Very good point.
So let's say content development, use
Hmm.
case engineering, very important. So, a lot of people and a lot of time when I've gone ahead and I've started working for a team, I've started leading a team, I've started developing a team. Every time in my experience, the first thing that I have told everyone in the SOC floor is that let's start with use case, because that is the root cause of all problems in SOC.
Hmm.
If your use cases are okay, your SOC is okay. So it is 100% match. You cannot have a SOC which is dysfunctional, but uska use case बहुत बढ़िया है. ये हो ही नहीं सकता. And you cannot have a SOC whose use case is dysfunctional, but the SOC is running beautifully. So the correlation is 100% here. So which is where for all the leaders who are out there, or all the aspiring leaders who are out there, the leaders would have already known this, but the bunch of people who are you know growing up to be shift leads, SOC leads, incident response leads, heads of cyber defense, for them my only message is, please look into your use case engineering as you look after your own baby. It is very, very important. So within that, I think the most popular one is the false positive ratio. I think we have talked about it a lot of time. You have made one very interesting video I saw a couple of days back on how do you look into false positive. Very important point. I was very surprised. I mean, not surprised because I was not expecting from you, but I was surprised that somebody has
Inspired from you.
gone up to that detail to talk
After
about.
after the previous session, I got inspired from that.
No, so I mean, it's good that and I'm happy that people are talking into these depths of a particular metric or a particular scenario within SOC. It is important because these are such fundamental elements of being in a SOC or doing things, and unfortunately they are not written at a lot of places, or it is being written in such a way that it's like a passing note. Ha, theek hai, chalo. Iske, next. So it does not give you that impression that how important it is. Now, one of the other things that I would want my use case engineering team or my content engineering team to look at is what is the percentage coverage of my integrated devices. So one of the big problem that a lot of technology leaders as well as engineering and security leaders have is budget. So we do not have infinite budget, right? I cannot just keep adding technology components, keep adding stack, keep adding more and more SIM license to accommodate my environment. So the way we do it is we take a risk-based approach that these 15 devices I need. And also within those 15 devices, we integrate whatever logs are essential. But at the time of integration, many a times what happens is that we integrate more logs than what is needed. So if you're able to do, now what is my problem statement here? My problem statement is I want to identify, I want to reduce my SOC expenditure. That's the decision that every SOC leader has to take. You agree?
True.
Any SOC leader across the world has to take a decision that I need to reduce my expenditure. There is no SOC leader who would come to you and say, my problem is I have more money and I don't know where to spend. This is never a problem. The problem is I have less money and I have to adjust.
True.
So how do you adjust? One way is to cut down your expenses. Now, if you look at your expense sheet, and if you consider it like running your own business, the top item in your expenditure list would be your SIM license cost. What does an SIM license cost contribute? It contributes from the logs that are getting ingested. Now, if you are able to identify some logs which are ingested but they are not used for your use cases, then it is of no use to you. There is no point storing those logs.
True.
Unless and until those logs are important for forensic or those logs are important from regulatory compliance perspective that you need to store.
True.
But what you can do with nowadays in last 6-8 months, most of these SIMs, they have a capability to divert the logs from the collection unit directly to storage. So it will bypass your analytics layer. So you are going to save a lot of compute on your analytics layer. You store the logs, but you do not need those logs for use case, so you directly store them.
Okay.
This is how you are going to save money. And at the end of it, you are going to have a top line, and then your objective is made. So how do you do this? Now, the problem statement you understood, the objective you understood, the goal you understood. What is the metric? The matrix is percentage coverage of my integrated devices. So if I have integrated 10 devices, I should have use cases for all those 10 devices. If I do not have use case for any one of those devices, either I should go ahead and create, and if during an analysis I figure out that these use cases are not security relevant, this is not important, I will stop consuming data from the device.
True.
Let's say let's take another example. In case of threat hunting also, I think one of the cool thing, I mean, one of the usual thing that we measure in threat hunting across most organizations is how many hypotheses was created, how many issues have been identified. Very good. It gives you a very moving compass in terms of where your team is heading. Is it doing well over a period of time? It's a broad metric. It's like the amount of runs scored by a batsman. Very relevant. Everybody should and has to measure. An interesting part of threat hunting, and again, I'll tell you the problem statement. The problem statement is, as a CISO, you have been told that your SIM vendor has come and he has told you, my SIM is the best SIM which is available in the market because we have machine learning capabilities. Very good. Now your CTO has asked you, boss, your CRO or your CEO has asked you, you have asked for such big amount of money because you're told your SIM has machine learning capabilities. But how do I know machine learning capabilities? Now, this is a problem statement. You need to confirm your return on investment. How do you look at your return on investment in this particular case? You go and ask your hunting team, you give me a percentage of your hunt hypothesis which is based on machine learning model versus non-machine learning model.
True.
If this number is, let's say, 20%, 30%, then you know at least 10-20% of your hypothesis is actually leveraging machine learning models, which is an indicator that your commitment or that promise that your SIM vendor has made कि मेरे पास machine learning model है, that is true to some extent. B, you are also happy that your team is actually doing long tail analysis, because with a machine learning, you are not going to do analysis of 1 day or 2 day data. So both ways, now you know that not just your team is efficient, but the solution that you are adopted, that also has good efficiency, and the commitment that your vendor has made, that is also in line. So two different parameters get confirmed by looking at this particular metric. Again, not a very popular metric, but then if you work in this domain, if you have spent enough time in this domain, you would know what problems that you face and how you can go back and design a metric that can help you to identify the identify a mechanism to solve that problem. So that's how most of the matrix should be identified
Hmm.
and then measured and then discussed, and then decisions are being taken, because there are two ways to go wrong. One is you're an organization who do not do matrix,
Simply
and
doing for sake.
I would consider them on an offense scale a lower offense
Hmm.
than an organization who is measuring beautiful metrics, has beautiful Kibana dashboards built all over the place, but they do nothing with that metric.
Hmm.
According to me, on an offense scale, the second organization is much more guilty, because, and I'll tell you, I'll give you my reasoning behind it. Because the second team is using expensive organizational resources to do something and then not do anything about it. You are using your team, you are using your technology, you are using some processes to build dashboards, to build metrics, to do everything around it, and then you are not taking any decision based on it. If you are
Understood.
not going to take any decision based on your metrics, if your decision making is because somebody has told you to do so, do not do metrics. Stop it. Save some money, save some effort, go and play TT. As simple as that.
And I believe when it comes to the having a metrics and all that, whatever in
Mhm.
the chat GPT database they have, okay, I think that is found from that generic only. That is how it works.
Correct. So, I mean, any LLM model right now, the beauty of it is that it would only give you things which already exist.
Hmm.
It would it would generally give you a summary, or based on some of the, of course, they have some delta compute that they do, but and again, I mean, it's a beautiful point. The point here is, if you talk with a lot of people who are industry veterans in cybersecurity, in technology, or or these large scale entrepreneurs that we have in our country right now, I think the single thought that all of them more or less echo is, all of them agree that AI, ML, machine learning, all of these are going to be very, very important. The chat GPTs of the world, they're going to be very, very important. But their ability to replace smart individual is still questionable.
Hmm.
Their ability to replace individual is not questionable. Their ability to replace smart individual is still questionable. So you need to be smart, because there are still things that a human can do which a machine cannot do, at least for next 20, 30 years. We don't know where we are heading. I don't know. I don't plan beyond a year and a half. But then I am still skeptical on those areas. I still think cyber and security as an industry will be a human capital intensive industry. It is not a technology capital intensive industry, because if you look at a protected organization, a safe organization, or let's say a breached and a non-breached organization, and then if you compare their technology stack, 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 would be similar. So
Understood.
the reason why an organization A versus an organization B has got nothing to do with technology. It has more to do with the processes that they have, and most to do with the human capital that they have invested in. So
That is how it
there are
works.
there are there are two firms, wherein one firm is probably investing in, let's say, 20,000 in training program, and the other one is investing 2 lakhs in a training program. Over a long run, the organization who is investing 2 lakhs in a training program would of course be much more secured from a human capital perspective, and that's the direction that we need to take. So I mean, people, process, technology, there's a reason why people comes first.
And this is what I have seen, the pattern in the company also. People directly focus on technology instead of focusing on the process.
No,
So metrics
no.
is driven always by the process. Yeah.
Correct. Your technology. See, you need to remember. Uh, there's this. There's this beautiful thing. One of my old school teacher used to tell, and he used to teach us. He used to teach us physics,
Hmm.
and I was always somebody who loved maths. Okay, and he was, and he knew me personally as well. So he used to always tell me that, don't forget, mathematics is an enabler. Physics is real science. Maths is not science. It's a tool. It's a utility. So
Facts.
Borrowing that example, technology is an utility. That's not security. SIM
Security is a
solution is not security.
security is a
SIM
requirement.
solution
It's a
is
non-functional requirement. We're implementing
correct.
it though
It's
technically.
a
Yeah.
mindset.
Hmm.
More often than not, right now, if you look at all the last 10 big breaches, they are not breached because the technology failed. Chalo, Okta wala problem, we will still say that it was intrinsic to a platform failure. But apart from that, the all other
People,
10 big cases,
lack of
yeah,
process of people. Yeah.
it's either people, or with the Microsoft thing, we figured out that somebody has not changed a leaked password.
That's some process.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it has got nothing to do with technology. The technology, in fact, you should be happy that the technology did exactly what it's supposed to do. It should allow you if you're entering the right password, and it allowed. So as a
True.
platform, it did exactly what it is supposed to do.
True
Beautiful.
statement. Yeah. Same with SQL injection. Also, people do, we when we do SQL injection and all that, we
Right.
actually do the true statements only just to
Correct.
manipulate. Yeah. So, Dada, before we wind up the sessions and all that,
Mhm.
what are the five or important takeaway
Mhm.
from this particular session for building metrics for the aspiring CISOs who are watching this video? One is like,
Correct.
security architect or the security architect of SOC is based on
Mhm.
visibility. Keep it simple, because until unless it's not simple, you cannot
Yeah,
able
yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah. Very
But
important. Yeah.
but
Keep
apart
it
from that,
simple.
Dada, what do you think? Like, what is the most important five takeaway from this particular pattern? Yeah, which you want to take? Yeah.
So I think if you're an aspiring CISO, if you're a deputy CISO, if you are heading a particular function, because right now for large organizations, the CISOs have ensured that this TAR leads, they are autonomous, they are taking decisions independently. So if you're one of them, I think the way you can start thinking about is at the start of the year when you are doing your budgeting, or at
Hmm.
the start of the year when you are doing your performance document creation, right? So this is when you kind of ideate what should be your goal for this year. Like,
Okay.
do I want to improve the maturity of my organization from 4 to 5? Do I want to reduce the budget from, let's say, 1 million to 0.85 million?
Hmm.
So that's the place that you start. So now at the start of the year, you write down those 5 or 10 broad statements in terms of objectives that you want to achieve. And then you see out of those 10 objectives, how many of them can be translated into quantitative, measurable metrics.
Okay.
Ideally, all of them should be, but I understand that if you are trying to do a cultural shift and those kind of things, it is difficult to put them into matrix.
Hmm.
But see if laterally you can identify something. So like I said, there are so many times when a specific indicator will not give you a decision, or it will not give you a direct idea, but
Hmm.
you can extrapolate it to take a decision. That example about an analyst spending more time or less time, that
Hmm.
will not give you any decision. But
Hmm.
if you can extrapolate that over a period of time along with some context, you can have an idea that okay, this particular analyst is not as sharp, is not as proactive, is not as efficient in resolving alerts compared to his or her peer. So step one, you identify your broad objective. Step two, you identify out of those objectives how many of them can be translated into measurable matrix. Step three, you start a process wherein these metrics are collected and measured. Try to
Hmm.
see how much of them can be automated and how much of them can be majorly automated, if not automated all the way. And then finally the last step is review those metrics honestly at a periodic frequency, see the data which is coming out, take those adjustments, do those adjustments. If your matrix is telling you a story, listen to that story,
More
listen to that
important.
feedback and take decision.
Most
If
important.
you have done everything, but then after the metrics is telling you that you know that this particular analyst is really really good, he has been performing very well quarter on quarter, that data is there, and still if you are not promoting him to a senior lead, then you are making a mistake. So listen to your data, take decisions based on it, take quick decisions. It's okay to take early decisions, but then once if it is backed by data, I don't think decision, if it is taken late or early, makes a lot of impact. As long as the data behind is strong, just go ahead and take a decision. Be confident about it.
That's the most important thing. Yeah. So that's a great insight, Dada. And so shall I disturb you again for the one more podcast if you
Yeah,
want to add that?
please.
Because I want to
No,
discuss on the building threat intel. And team, do let me know in a comment box, shall we
correct.
make one more video on threat intel or something
Yeah,
around SOC? So it's like an
Chandra.
opportunity on live session. Dada cannot say no. So I will use this opportunity.
No, I will not say no, even if it is a non-live session. So
Okay.
I'll be very happy to come again, discuss some other facet of SOC, or areas related to cyber defense,
Hmm.
or any of the areas that is bothering, or that is that is troubling people out there. Huge shout out to you
Hmm.
for doing so much for the community. And I know, although you have a program wherein people go register, and there's a fee based structure to it, there is also a lot of free content. There's a lot of free material that you are creating, you have created, and you are creating on a daily basis. And hats off to you. I mean, taking time out to do non-paid work, I think it's the most beautiful way of giving back to the
Thanks, Dada.
community. I'm sure you appreciate what the community has given to you. So where we both are at this point in time, it's
Yeah.
just because of the community that we have. So I think it's really important for people like you to give back, for people like all of us. I think to
Yeah.
give back. And yeah, have a great weekend ahead, and enjoy your day.
Thanks, Dada. Thank you so much, Dada. And can I share your LinkedIn profile in the
Yeah,
YouTube
please.
description box? If any aspiring
Correct.
CISO or
Correct.
CISO want some
Correct.
kind of an assistance, he can reach out to directly.
Sure. So I would also do a small plugin. I run this
Oh
micro
wow.
mentoring sessions right
Yeah.
now. It's a 30-minute session. I do about 4 to 5 sessions every week. This
Hmm.
is absolutely free.
Great.
I'll send you a link. You can join on that link, and you can ask me anything and everything that you want to discuss, that you want to understand. And I don't take any other calls during the time, so it is undivided 30 minutes of my time. No excuse. I don't cancel until and unless something really bad has happened. So I will have I have I mean, there's a commitment from my side. I'll be available. So if you're available, we can both spend 30 minutes together. So people who are out there who want to spend some time, pick some topic, want to discuss something that they want to discuss with me, where they think that I can help and contribute, please register, and I'll be happy to help you out.
That is really a great thing. And Dada, team, Namu is basically do a lot of LinkedIn activities on content and all that. And the event he talking about, he used to share the links and all that. Do reach out to them directly. And I will also share the LinkedIn profile in my YouTube description box. So you should not miss this opportunity. There are very rare people who does this kind of initiative. And if you're taking all the 30 minutes from his schedule to do this, it's a big thing. So use this opportunity effectively, get the knowledge from the right expert. Thank you, Dada. And we're looking
Thanks,
forward for
bro.
more session like that.
Take care. Bye.
Bye, Dada. Take care.